Okay, in this video what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the prelim paper for National 5 Design and Manufacture. Now remember, the paper consists of two sections. Section 1 is out of 60 marks, Section 2 is out of 20 marks. In Section 1 you can accumulate 30 marks by answering questions on workshop manufacture, and you can accumulate 30 marks by answering questions on design. So let's begin by going through each of the questions. In question 1 here it says, a design proposal for a pegboard and accessories is shown below. So we've got a softwood frame, we've got a backboard, we've got a photo holder here, we've got standard pegs, we've got sticky labels wrapped around pegs, we've got a pencil holder, and we've got a phone shelf. Question 1a says, the standard pegs were made from hardwood. Name a suitable light coloured hardwood for the standard peg. Now, in order to answer this question, you need to know about wood. You can get three different types of wood. You can get softwoods, hardwoods, manufactured boards. So you need to know some hardwoods. And the hardwood here that you could use would be possibly, it could be oak, or it could be ash, or possibly beech, which are all light in colour and are obviously hardwoods. Question 1a, two sticky label pegs were turned on the wood lathe from a single length of wood. So what we've got a picture here of the turned piece of wood, and you can see that from one piece of wood on the woodworking lathe it's possible to make two pegs, and we have additional material at the end and additional material in the middle. It says, outline 2 reasons why additional material is included on the length of the wood. Well, the additional material on the end is basically there to ensure that you do not turn the diameter of the wood down to the point where the chisel might hit the centres. Remember, you've got a forked centre on one end and a conal centre on the other end. So it's crucial, just for safety reasons, to have an extra bit of wood at either end where the centres are in contact with the wood. Another reason here would be it's possible to make 2 pegs from one piece of wood, and in order to do that you need additional material in the middle so that you're able to separate the 2 pegs. The sticky label pegs were turned to the sizes shown below. So we've got one end here which has a diameter of 35mm, and we've got the other end here, so the main diameter along its length is 30mm, and then we've got this bit here at the end that has a diameter of 18mm. Question 1.3 says, name the lathe process carried out to reduce the diameter from 35 to 30mm. Now, in this question, you need to know about the various woodworking lathe processes associated with turning wood. These include parallel turning, facing off, taper turning, parting off, creating coves, creating rings. In this particular case, we've reduced the diameter from 35 to 20, and you can imagine that that would be parallel turning. So the chisel would be going along in a parallel direction along the length, reducing the original diameter 35 to 30. So your answer should be parallel turning. Question 1.4. Name the hand tool that should be used to check that the diameters are the correct size. So the hand tool for checking diameters can be either called outside calipers or external calipers. The four sides of the frame were cut from one length of wood and shaped as shown below. Now we've got a picture of the frame here, and if you go back up here you can see the frame here that surrounds the peg board. So if we look at the diagram or the picture of the frame here, we've got some chamfers running along at the length. We've got a groove here that's also runs along the length of it. I imagine that's for inserting a bit of MDF. It says, complete the sequence of operations shown below by filling in the appropriate process and tools. So it gives you step one as an example. Process, you mark the lengths, and you'd mark the lengths using a tri-square rule and a pencil. Okay, so if you go back to the frame, we've got the top and the bottom and the sides, so you would have one long piece of wood, and you would mark, obviously you need to know what these sizes are, so what's the width of the wood, and you would mark the width twice on your piece of wood, and you'd mark the length twice on your piece of wood. Okay, another thing is you probably use two lines so that you can sand between the two lines and use a sanding machine to sand the bits of wood down accurately to the correct length. So, the next process. How would you mark the chamfer? Now the chamfer is basically this sloping edge that runs along the wood. Now that chamfer could be marked using a marking gauge. Where before it's chamfered you'd have the corner, and you would set the marking gauge to the relevant size and mark your lines along its length. I also believe it would be acceptable to use a rule and a long rule and a pencil to mark your chamfer. The next step here, it doesn't give you the process, but it gives you the tool. So what process would be used, what process would we use a plough plane for? Well, the plough plane would be used to make the groove, okay, at the bottom here. Step 4, how would we cut the chamfer? Now you cut the chamfer using a smoothing plane. And then finally, how would you cut it to length? You would cut the 4 sections to length using a tenon saw. Explain why step 4 was carried out before step 5 in the table above. So basically you cut the chamfer using a smoothing plane, and then you cut it to length. The reason for doing that, well, basically 2 reasons for doing that you could give. One would be it's easier to plane along the full length of the wood in order to maintain the same width of chamfer and then cut it to length, rather than cutting it into 4 sections and then chamfering it, and there might be a slight variation in the width of the chamfer. And that's one mark. Question 1b. The frame was checked for squareness during assembly. Describe 2 methods of checking the frame is square. You may use sketches to illustrate your answer in the box below. Right, so if you think of a frame which is a rectangular shape, or it's either a square or a rectangular shape. At the corners, the frame has to meet 90 degrees. So we could use a chi-square to check to see that the corners meet at 90 degrees. An alternative method is to measure the diagonal sizes. So the diagonal distance from one corner to the opposite corner, like from the top left to the bottom right here, and from the bottom left to the top right, if they're the same, then that means that the rectangle is a perfect rectangle and is therefore a good way of checking that the squareness of the rectangle.